go away with you. Forever in my mind, only you. The pieces in my life run away with you. You're my first love. You're my first love. You're my first love. You're my first love.
(1986) was the first ever Hungarian Grand Prix held at the Hungaroring, which took only 8 months to build, the fastest build of any Formula 1 track on the calendar right now. The Hungaroring has seen 2 champions crowned, Nigel Mansell in 1992 and Michael Schumacher in 2001. We won't see that happen today, as we are here for round 8 of 14 for the Formula SimRacing World Series Championship. I am Matthew Hartley, here to broadcast the action, and I'm pleased to introduce alongside me today Lewis McGlade.
Hello. It's great to be back. We've had quite a big break. I think it's 4 weeks since the last World Series race, which was won, I believe, by Edward Malorki. Down in Germany. Whereas we're here, we've passed the halfway point of the championship now. Things are looking pretty close between the top 4. Goldsby's back in the car, hoping to actually gain some points and keep his championship lead. Things are going to get really interesting quite quickly in this championship now, as we have passed the halfway point. We've got a load of interesting tracks lined up, and things. I think things are going to get really, really close.
I agree, yeah. You made a good point with Martin Goldsby. The Gauze is back because he has to start getting some points. He lucked out tremendously with Rob van Starkenburg's terrible bad luck disconnected at Nürburgring whilst winning. That did his championship hopes a lot of good. Goldsby managed to avoid losing so many points there, but can't go to the well too many times, and I think it's good that he shows up occasionally for a race. So we're glad to have him back today. We are in Q1. 3 minutes and 4 seconds remaining, and top of the timesheets right now is Peter Burlak for Twister Racing on a 1:17.893. He's showing good pace there, Lewis.
He is indeed. He was when I first joined, he was about a quarter of a second in front of the Precision boys, which actually he is still just over a quarter of a second in front of the 2. You've got the ghost speeds behind them of Vilo Lapala and Dimitri Tomatos. But ultimately, what I'm really liking about this table is that you've got the top 7. They're all within half a second of each other. It's looking pretty close at the top of the table, and I think we all, as spectators of this, and commentators from mine and your perspective, we love a lovely, close, juicy qualifying session. It's always very interesting to see where the cut-off point is, and what's going to go on throughout the session. And with only 2 minutes to go, this is when you'll see the flood of cars head straight out onto track and try and complete their laps. The ones in the pit lane at the moment will probably be leaving the pits in only about 20 seconds, because once they've passed that point they won't have really enough time to get around the track whilst avoiding all of the traffic. This is where things get really close, and where the people who have left it too late may get caught up in traffic and absolutely ruin the lap. Burlak goes very wide there to get as much of a run down the straight to get a good lap in as possible. But this is where the session gets really, really interesting to see where people will appear and who will get the best lap in, get the best use of the track, the best use of the conditions at the moment, and the best use of the track.
Yep, and it's coming on for that time right now. I'm watching Masculi. He's not going to get across the line for 2 goes. He's in P9, kind of looking at the guys around the bubble. Masculi improves to P8, as I say. So we got Burlak at first, and he said Zutis, Lapala, Dematos, Gosby, Van Starkenberg, Verdmuller. Masculi now moves to 8th, and there's a good fight going on between 8th and what looks to be about 12th, 13th. So we have Alex Diaz currently through, David Franco also through, and then Kolarec and Oslakovic are on the bubble for the Venus Project Racing. So that will be torture for that team if they don't get one of these 2 guys through. Oslakovic, I believe, is on a lap, and Kolarec is coming round the start-finish line, surely to end a lap or start one. Is it going to start one? No, he just ended one, and it wasn't quite good enough. So Kolarec looks like his qualifying is over, and we'll see whether anybody else can improve.
Indeed, he returns to the pits there, and I think his qualifying session day is currently over. Oslakovic, though, is winding himself up. He's going to be very, very close to sorting out that lap. He's got Ville Lapala right in front of him, and he's got 10 seconds across the line. I think he's going to do it, though. We'll just keep an eye on him, as, yep, he does actually cross the line. So he's got another lap. He's pretty much the last person to cross that line. And he doesn't have that much time. He's got to get this absolutely perfect. He's in 12th position. If he gets this right, he will move Franco out of the top 10 and move himself into that Q2 session.
Yeah, you saw Lapala get out the way there, so we're on board with Luka Oslakovic. Looks like he's going to be the real guy to watch, and he's coming up now to the very, very fast turn 4. Doesn't use too much of the road because you can get in trouble on the exit, as some of the Formula 1 drivers found out. Use a little bit of curb on the exit of 5 through 6 and 7 chicane. Doesn't really worry the inside curbs too much. You don't want to get too high on them. And Oslakovic needs to find about 1/10 and a half in all, and he gets really sideways, and he comes through the fast turn 11. I believe there's 14 turns on this track. That's what my map says. That's what I'm going to go with. So turn 12 now, gets through there into this final sector, which is a very clumsy last sector, because you kind of have to wait, and there he misses the apex. You can get away with missing the apex on these last turns. You can either follow it round, or you can take a late apex. And here we go, Luka Oslakovic for the Venus Project Racing to get through to Q1, and he does not manage to do it.
Nope.
So it looks like that's how they'll line up.
Yeah, that did not look comfortable going through those last, the big hairpin turns. They didn't look comfortable. It was understeering all the way around it. Luaro rejoins the server. He's a bit late for Q1, but still.
A little bit.
He was actually the pole sitter first time out in Australia. I remember that. That was a very, very surprising pole position there for Luaro. But he's not really... he's scored some points since, but he's not really put himself that far forwards. And, with him joining this day, he's probably going to start from the back. Which is quite unfortunate there.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be any worry for Paul today. If he is, then there's going to be a few protests going around. He did not make it through, so the guys that didn't make it through, and their positions are set for the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix for the Formula SimRacing World Series. Antonio Kolarec is 11th. Luka Oslakovic, as we said, is 12th. A Venus Project Racing 1-2 Heartbreak. 13th is Danny Van Der Neet for Crown 7 Netrex. 14th, Nick Rowland starts there. And 15th is Florian Collet. He is 16th is Mohamed Patel for Abuto Racing. Armando Moret 17th. Edward Malorki 18th. Last. What about that one?
That's quite interesting. I think I saw that he had a penalty, though, as to why he's starting in last position. But yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, especially considering to point out to everyone sitting at home, wondering why we're bringing up Milwaukee. He is 4th in the championship year, and we obviously stated earlier that he took the win the last time out. And he's 4th in the championship. He's not too far off of Burlak, Van Starkenberg, and even Gosby. Really, he's 35 points off of Gosby, off of the lead of the championship. And so to start from the back of the grid, he's got a lot of work to do, especially around a circuit such as this, when overtaking isn't particularly easy.
No. They call this the road course of Monaco. And there are two things similar, I think, only with Monaco. One, you can't pass at Monaco, you can't pass here. And the second thing is the casinos. I lose money at both of them. I went and put money on a table here, and some guy took it. So I don't even think it was a legit casino. But either way, this is how they roll, and we are going to go on board. I think Martin Gosby will be the first guy to come round and put a lap up in this session. So we'll go on board with the championship leader, Martin Gosby, into turn 1.
Yeah, it's really good to see him back in the car. He gets T1 done quite nicely. The car slowed down pretty well. This is turn 1A, which is why some people confuse this circuit with having 15 turns. I remember watching the GP2 and there was a bit of confusion there. But still, this car does look pretty good. He's sitting in some good time at the moment. You only get 1 lap in this session, as opposed to having as many laps as you wish. He goes quite wide through 4 and gets it. This car does look pretty hooked up. I mean, it's not really understeering as much as we saw from, I think it was Ostakovic's car earlier.
Yeah.
But this car looks pretty hooked up at the moment. It's looking quite easy-ish to drive for Gosby at the moment. I mean, we've seen him drive some pretty difficult cars, but he seems pretty really comfortable at the moment, and this looks like it's going to be a really good lap there for Gosby.
Yeah, he needs it to be, because it looked from practice and from Q1 that they didn't quite have the pace of Twister. So Martin Gosby's going to have to get the max out of his car to really put the pressure onto them, and he's coming up to the last turn now. So we'll see what he can do. Van Starkenberg, his teammate, is right behind him. So Martin Gosby will put the first time with the board. 18.2, that's not too bad of a time. He might have been hoping for a 1 or a 0. Starkenberg, though, with 18.5, that will be a little bit disappointing for RVS. And Alex Diaz comes through with a 19.4. We're looking at Peter Burlak entering the last sector as David Franco comes in, and he is now P4 with a 19.6. Burlak into the last sector then.
I saw that Cyril Vermeulen has actually given up on his lap. He's not continuing now, but here comes Burlak around the final corner, T14, T15, depending on how you profile this circuit, and he is going to go P2. No. He goes P2 at 118.311.
Wow.
That is interesting. So, when it really mattered, the Twister of Peter Burlak just did not have the pace. I believe someone is not in the server, though, because the Venus Project cars have jumped up to here goes Lapala, and Lapala goes second.
Oh wow,
not
almost
very far off of Gosby, not very far off of Gosby at all. A 118.275. But yeah, someone's left, not sure who. Apologies for that. Actually, 2 people have left in consideration that the Venus Project cars are now 9th and 10th.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. See what's going on there. 2 guys have DQ'd. David Franco and Alex Diaz were disqualified.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Not sure why. We'll check up on that one and see what we can find out. Yeah, you said Verdmuller didn't do a lap, so Kolarec and Oslakovic won't do a lap, so we have a nice 28-second break here, because that is how things are going to start for the race. Gosby will be P1, and Villapala not far behind at all, P2.
Agree. That was a pretty close qualifying session, considering that there was only there's less than a tenth that separates the top 3. But apparently, we've seen the 2 drivers, David Franco and Alex Diaz, who were going around for another go. I will say that sometimes with David Franco, I saw this a couple of times over at GPVWC, where when you have these 1-lap qualifying sessions, they're actually given 3 laps, which is an out lap, the fast lap, and then an in lap. However, sometimes if you complete the in lap and say your garage is at the end of the pit lane, when you're going down the pit lane, if you've decided to go around again to do the outlap, it will think that you've tried doing another lap. It will give you the 4 out of 3, which will then immediately disqualify you from the session. Now, some of the drivers need to be aware of that because you've seen it a few times where the drivers stop at the beginning of the pit lane and then escape back to the garage because that stops anything like this happening. And I'm surprised if that is the case that these two didn't know about that.
You might be spot on. You might be miles away, but you might be spot on. So it's a good call there from Lewis, and definitely I think those guys probably should have been aware of that if that was the case, but it's going to cost them because they're going to start at the back of the grid. So we will enter the warm-up session and we will go to a sponsor video and we'll catch you at the end of the break. Hello everybody, welcome back to round 8 at Hungary. Thank you for watching the sponsor video as we get ready to race. 7 minutes left to go before that will happen. And just looking back at the qualifying session, pole position going to Precision. When it looked like maybe they didn't have the pace to do it, but as always Precision come through, and no better time I think to talk about the stats than now, so we'll go ahead and look at the championship standings. Martin Gosby is in P1 in the drivers standings. He is 230. Then you have RVS of Rob van Starkenburg at 205. Now he is tied with Peter Burlak, who is also at 205. Obviously Van Starkenburg has the tie of more wins, but that disconnect really hurt him as Burlak is now tied. Malarkey is P4. He'll be starting from the back though here with a penalty at 195. And then Cyril Verdmuller is a long way back down P5, but he's leading the next race. There's a kind of another fight going on for P5, and he has 100 points, so he's leading that one. Constructors, again, 2 fights going on. For the first place, you have Precision Motorsports. They have 451. Twister have 414. So they're not too far behind them. They caught up a lot at Nürburgring. And then there's a big gap. And right behind them, Crown 7 Netrex is in 3rd place. They have 168. Then you have Butto GP, apologies for the delay. My pen on the marker just ran out. Oh, what a terrible day. So 162 for Butto GP, and then 161 for GT Omega. So those are all very close. So there's kind of 2 fights going on right now, Lewis. For first place, and then maybe for like 4th, 5th place. And the constructors for 3rd place, though. So it's interesting to see the 2 teams, Twister and Precision, kind of pulling away, though.
Yeah, Twister and Precision are like the 2 top teams at this present moment in time. They're the kind of your Red Bull and your McLaren from last year in Formula 1. You know, they're the 2 bigger teams, although McLaren did finish 3rd. We'll gloss over that one. But you know what I mean, they're the 2 top teams in the championship at the moment. And they have, the proof is when you look at the drivers table, and the top 4 drivers are the 4 drivers from those 2 teams. I am like actually riding on board with Milwaukee, and he seemed like he's got some really good race pace at the moment. He's currently sitting P1 in this warm-up session, so I think he'll be able to salvage some decent points out of this. As a reminder to everyone at home, though, it is 50 points for a win here in the World Series. But I think we're in for a really quite interesting race. I don't think it's going to play out as simply as some might think, but I think Gosby really needs to get on top of this and get this win. Because although he's taken 3 this season already, there's just some things. I mean, with the whole Silverstone incident with him in the World Championships, where he moved himself down into 4th place, but then I can't remember, someone got disqualified. I think it was Liebherr who got disqualified from that race, moving him back up into a podium position. And the regulations state that if you've taken, I think it's if you've taken a podium in the above category, you can't take part in the lower category. And so obviously he got a podium in World Championship, and that meant he couldn't really take part in the World Series. I think many things have been questioned about this, and that's why he's back. He's allowed to continue to race because he did move himself out of that contention, and then circumstances after the race put him into that position, and it was a bit unfair from that circumstance that he couldn't have predicted that to happen. But nevertheless, he is back in this car. He is back fighting for this championship. And I think these Twister guys, they've really got it sorted. I mean, Milwaukee's a bit out of contention for the race win at the moment, with being down towards the back of the grid. I think I saw he was about 16th, including the other people who didn't set laps and disqualified, the other 2. But I think this race is going to get really, really interesting to see if Gosby can run away with it this time, because I don't really think he will. I think Berlak's actually got some seriously good pace.
I think Twister's going to have more pace than Precision. Just got a feeling, but Precision, I mean, they go by consistency, so it'll be interesting to see which one pays out here. And you can overtake here for the lovers of this track, but you really have to get a good run going down the main straight or launch one up the inside somewhere.
There is some really, really brave places. It is the bravest of the brave who try and attempt to move, I don't know, through T4 or we've seen it before throughout Formula 1 or even through this. But you have to be a seriously brave driver. I mean, I saw in GP2, although it was a lapped car of Johnny Cicotto, tried to make a move. I think it was through the exit of turn 8 and through 9. It was an insane attempt at a move. And as much as I respect him, I mean, he was a lapped car. He shouldn't have made that move, but if that was for position, that would have been like my talking point of the entire weekend, because I just wouldn't have been able to stop talking about this move through this impossible section. There's only one line through it, and yet someone has attempted a move. It is insane, but you can't help but feel, looking at this grid and some of the things that they've done, I think we're going to have some really, really brave driving today.
Well, you said brave, and one guy that we know certainly is brave and is out of position with a fast car is Edward Milwaukee. So I'm just saying, if we have extra cameras, that's probably the guy you want to put it on, because I got a feeling he's gonna pull some moves, because he hasn't really got a whole lot to lose back there. A couple points maybe, but it'll be interesting to see how aggressive he wants to go with it, because we know Milwaukee is definitely bravest of the brave when it comes to overtaking, and we'll see how he can do. Looking at the warm-up times, Patel, Rowland, they were up there as well, so they might be guys to watch out for. Nick Rowland, this guy must overtake at least 5 guys by turn 1 every single time. So we know he's going to go up at least 5 positions. He doesn't have the pace, but he overtakes. I remember Monaco. I mean, he got himself in 5th place and then just kind of blocked the way, and everybody else kept making mistakes, and he finished up there. And that's racing. So we'll see whether he can do that here, because again, like we said, it's not easy to pass. So if he gets a good start, even if he doesn't have the pace, he might be troublesome in the middle of the field. And looking at a few other names, Zoltan Suti, I think that guy has a lot of pace, and I'd be surprised if he ends up at the bottom half of the top 10 rather than the top half.
Yeah, I do agree about Nick Rowland. I mean, he could be the basically the Jensen Button for these people if you think back to Formula 1. But there's one thing that I've not really enjoyed about looking at Nick Rowland today, is that as I think we saw in Germany, is that he's not driving around in that bright yellow precision car. That's gone to Lowell now. But I miss that car. It was so bright and in your face. It was incredible. It was really, really nice to look at. It was just like a really silly colour scheme on the car.
And then we will go from there to the start of round 8 for the Formula World Series event from SimRacing. Martin Gosby on pole. Villapala a surprise second. So we'll see what he can do.
Indeed, I think Lapala will be one to look out for. I mean, I've seen him race quite a bit, and I think he will have a very interesting role to play in this scenario. I mean, he's not really particularly playing for championships from what we've seen, but it's going to be quite interesting to see where this race goes from now on. But as you said, Martin Gosby starts from pole. Alongside him, Ville Lapala. That is quite the combination for the front row.
Well, Lapala had a great start at Nürburgring actually, but he got caught up in an incident trying to go for second place at turn 3 or 4 in the first sector, and managed to get spun round, and that ruined his race. But he really went all out for it, and he did not start on the front row for that race, so expect him to be attacking Gosby going into the first couple turns, and I think you just have to, because we've seen Gosby in the past get the lead and never give it up.
Yep, agreed. And with 20 cars on the track, I think this could get really, really interesting. Starting from the back to the front, doing it a bit awkward this time, because why not? Olli Picala, I've not seen this name before, so I'm going to assume new or took part in Germany and I didn't see.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so he did. Okay, great. So you've got Picala, then you've got Lowell, who joined partway through the session we saw earlier. Then you've got Milwaukee, Mora, Patel, Colley, Rowland, Van der Neet, Oslakovic, Kolarek, and then into the top 10 you have Franco and Diaz. They did not get disqualified from the qualifying session. They got their positions replaced. Then you have Cyril Vermeulen, Zoltan Suti, Dimitri de Matos, Euros Musculi, the precision of Rob van Starkenburg, Peter Burlak, and then your front row, Ville Lapala and Martin Gosby. What is going to happen from this start? Who is going to take the win? That is going to be a very interesting question.
And that's what we're about to find out. All the cars coming around to line up. As we said, precision against Ville Lapala on the front row. And here come the lights. We have 3, 4 red lights, and the Hungarian Grand Prix is go. Looks like a lot of wheel spin from Lapala. Burlak's trying to go around the outside of him. Lapala pushes in wide, and here comes Van Starkenburg up the inside. Gosby way clear going into turn 1, and it looks like he's going to get it. Is all 3 going to make it round turn 1? Van Starkenburg still side by side with Burlak, and Lapala has fell backwards. Looks like everybody else seems to have made it round the field. Burlak looking to try and get past Van Starkenburg. A precision 1-2 start right now for that unbelievable start for that team, and Van Starkenburg has held up the threat, and that is how it will play out going into turn 4.
Yeah, terrible start there from the Parlour, but absolutely what precision wanted. It is a precision 1T, as you stated. This is going to do really, really well for their constructors. I am just going to have a look to see where Milwaukee's up to 14th place. He's made up a couple of positions throughout the back of the grid. We've got to keep an eye on this guy because he's just going to make a move. He goes round Collie. Really, really good move there. Absolutely brave. He's up into 13th place. He's out eyeing up Van der Neat right now as he goes round the outside. What a move. Wow. What a move.
Oh, and that was, I think, one of the cars off in the background. And somebody went through the chicane. There's all sorts of bumping and bashing going on through turn 11. Seeing Verdmuller. Roland is up to 9th, as predicted. Roland is up to 9th, driving for GT Omega this weekend. Sorry, my apologies. Thought he was still in the precision yellow car, but he switched that out. So he's had a great start again. And it looks like Van der Neat, Kolarec, those two guys are close, but they'll come through. Lap 1, Martin Gosby leads the Hungarian Grand Prix. Rob van Starkenburg is second. Burlak is third. A big train between these three guys. Lapala fell back and is now coming under pressure from Suti, as we said, who had a good start. And up the inside is Masculi on Verdmuller. And will he manage to get that pass done? Still side by side, now going into turn 2. Unfortunately, Masculi will be on the outside. This is going to be hard to make a pass through there. Verdmuller parks his car nicely, so will be Suti, De Matos, Verdmuller, Masculi, Nick Rowland in 9th, Edward Milwaukee up to P10.
Jeez, wow, that was a great start then from Milwaukee. After just one lap, he's already put his car into the top 10. Look at him go,
attacking Rowland. He's going to go the inside, is he? Oh, and Rowland had to defend it. Rowland was looking past Masculi. Oh, and look, no, he can't go side by side through there, and that's always never going to work. And Milwaukee now is going to go overtaken. That was a little bit rash. As we said, sometimes bravest of the brave, and that was a little too brave, but he manages to hold it back, gets a little bit of a nudge. Milwaukee fighting his way tooth and nail here for these positions. He hit the brick wall that is Nick Rowland, but he manages to still stay in this race. Unbelievable start, though.
Absolutely unbelievable. But I think that does show that you've got to really pick your place with the move. I think he's been on a bit of a streak moving past all these people when, overtaking here is pretty difficult, and then he's just thinking, oh, it's just another one, it's just another one. No, this one is Roland. You gotta work for this one. You're now in the top 10. This is where all the fast people are at, and you really, really have to work for it. The gap between P1 and P2, sorry, I was just going to say, it was half a second. It is bridging just a little bit.
Sorry, yeah, Roland just made a pass in Masculi going into turn 1, and Milwaukee's going to have to try and get by Masculi, who's now kind of in no man's land. He's defending against Milwaukee around the outside of turn 2, and Milwaukee makes that pass work, so that was a nice pass. Roland makes a nice pass into turn 1, and you said the gap between the leaders isn't exactly massive. It's 7/10 of a second now, and Burlak seems to be sticking right with Van Starkenburg.
Yeah, Milwaukee picked that really, really well. I mean, it looked like he was going to go to the inside, then he moves to the outside, which seems like a really bad move, but you're going to be on the inside through T3, you're going to have the best line, and it worked out absolutely beautifully for him to move up further into that top 10. He's got a string of cars in front of him, this Milwaukee, and this is just more and more points for him. This is going to be really, really good, for his driving, for what's going on inside his mind at the moment, for his confidence.
I thought he was going to launch one. Turn 12 there on Nick Rowland. Maybe he's a little bit... Oh, and he almost hits the back of him. A little bit starstruck right now. Rowland's never going to make it this easy. He doesn't make mistakes. And De Matos is also kind of falling back into the clutches of these two guys. So De Matos has to be careful. So we'll see whether Edward Milwaukee can get a run going into turn 1 on Nick Rowland. Rowland's in the middle, and Milwaukee goes to the outside. This is going to be hard to pass Rowland around the outside. Oh, and they almost touch. I think they do touch. He did it.
He's done it.
Oh, Rowland spins. He manages to get by Rowland, and Rowland half spins. He's still going. It looks like he's lost about 3 places, but Rowland just got completely sideways coming out of that corner. Maybe the contact with Milwaukee just nudged his car off balance a little bit.
Oh, Milwaukee was just having a look into T4 on De Matos, but yeah, it was just a bit unfortunate to unsettle these cars. It's just one little tap just to lift the rear wheels or the front wheels, and that's it. These cars spin. They're quite difficult to drive. But Milwaukee's moved it up into 8th place. It's a shame about Roland to move outside of the top 10 now, but he's got to get it back together again. And he's got the positions right in front of him. I think he'll be able to try and make those moves a couple of times. Give a couple of goes over the next few laps.
Here we go. Here goes Milwaukee again. Milwaukee cam. as we go into turn 12. And Dematis isn't going to give this up easy, but he's going to have to. He's going to run out of road, and nicely done there from Milwaukee, and he continues to move his way up the field. He's now into 7th position. Great start from him.
Yeah, it's just I can't believe how many moves, how many times he's just making these moves. You know, we're about to just finish lap 3, and he's up into 7th place from what was 16th on the grid. He's moved up nearly 10 places. You know, around effectively Monaco without the barriers, and it's been a very impressive drive so far, and he's got the positions ahead of him. Although that does just show Lapala's start was pretty appalling, considering he is now cleanly in the sights of Milwaukee. That position, the what is P4, isn't it? Is in the eyes of Milwaukee at the moment.
You have to say Precision are doing a good job as well, because they obviously know the threat of Twister, and right now they're pulling out the gap very nicely between Van Starkenberg and Burlack. So that's interesting to see that Burlack doesn't have the pace to stick with Van Starkenberg, and they're trying to get the gap before Milwaukee overtakes these next few cars, which could be by the end of this lap. He's now up on Verdmuller. Verdmuller was actually attacking Suti a lap ago, so you would think that Suti won't be much of a threat if he can get by Verdmuller. And Milwaukee, I mean, he has to be doing a short stint right now.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before the race that Milwaukee looked like he had some really strong race pace, and proof of that was that the last lap that he did was actually the fastest lap of the race, albeit by 6,000ths of a second in front of Gosby. But Milwaukee was making moves. He was in traffic. Gosby is in absolutely clean air. So this is going to be a very impressive thing. Rob Van Starkenberg sets the fastest second sector. He sets a personal best in the first and the live timing. He's not quite updated yet to see what the lap time was. It wasn't the fastest overall. That actually goes to Burlack with the 125.524. So these guys are actually on remarkably similar pace. All of their laps, their last laps, were actually within about 300ths of a second were the three of these.
Sorry to interrupt, Milwaukee tried that turn 2 move round the outside again, but this time it didn't work. Verdmuller was wise to it. So Milwaukee's definitely attacking, like we said, but interesting times there that Burlack posted the fastest lap, and he's caught right up to Van Starkenberg. Sorry, it must have been Lapala's gap that I was looking at. Apologies to Peter Burlack. He does seem to have the pace to stick with Precision right now, and so it looks like it's not going to be a walk in the park for Precision, but they still lead this one 1 and 2. So they have a rear gunner for Gosby, although Van Starkenberg will really need to beat Gosby because he's second in the championship. Into team battle.
Yep, indeed. Which means that no team orders. I would hope. I don't think we really have too many teams that pull off team orders in this championship anyway. But this is an absolute, clear picture of what's happening in the championship. Gosby's leading. Van Starkenberg and Burlack are not too far apart, and Milwaukee's fighting through everyone else. I mean, I think Milwaukee should be up into 4th in pretty much no time. He's into the faster people now from what he's been overtaking before. But I mean, I'm sure he'll be moving through that load. We've got we've got 65 laps to go so far. But at the moment, we don't have a clear winner. This is really what we want to see, is these races where you can't really pick a clear winner, not until the final 5-10 laps. And even then, if it goes down to the wire, that is absolutely brilliant. That's what we all want to see.
And yeah, you're right. It looks like we have it here. Milwaukee is slowed up a little bit on Cyril Verdmuller after that mistake. And it's interesting to see, because Milwaukee needs to get by these guys if he is going to do a shorter stint. We saw last race, Netrex, I believe, did it. And they got all the way up through the field. And then they didn't manage to go very long on the tyres, though. So we'll see whether Milwaukee has to come in before everybody else, because of the strategy that he's doing. If that's the case, he really needs to get by Cyril Verdmuller. But the problem is, he's hit this train of cars, and they're all getting each other's slipstream on the straight. So it looks like Milwaukee doesn't have the pace to overtake into turn 1. So he's going to have to try one of his specialty moves. I wouldn't recommend the one through the chicane that he tried on the first lap. But we'll see whether he can get by this time. Different lines into that last turn. You see a lot of people, some people going wide, some people carrying it tight all the way around the inside. It's one of those tracks where you can kind of take different lines through those corners.
Yeah, it also depends on what you're trying to do in the race. Milwaukee should be going for more of a wider line for that final corner, because that'll give them a better drive onto that straight. However, if you're defending, maybe taking a tighter line might be more beneficial. because it might actually gap you between the car behind just briefly, just enough to keep it until the end of the straight. It's very interesting to see how these drivers react to every situation that's put in front of them. And as we were saying, that Gosby, Van Starkenberg and Burlak's time were close. Then Gosby does a 1:25.421, which is the fastest lap of the race, and it's about a tenth faster than the two behind. The gap between them now is 1.1 seconds. It is gapping ever so slightly. I think Gosby's he's just controlling this at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like Burlak is closing a little bit on Van Starkenberg. Well, he was, but he lost a lot of time, a little bit of time in that middle sector. So interesting to see which of these two cars works the best. But I expect Burlak to attack Van Starkenberg at some point, as Van Starkenberg is doing a pretty good job at keeping with Gosby right now. But you get the feeling that Gosby is managing this, and he has a bit more pace. Let's go back to Milwaukee Cam, and Milwaukee Cam is going to do what I suggested.
Yeah.
And he is going to be into the pits extremely early, so we
saw
it at Nürburgring.
Was off. Yep, Lapala was actually off. He's down in 7th place. I thought I saw a Ghost Speed pulling off at the final corner. But that is Lapala, who's dropped down a little bit. Must have made a mistake.
I'll check that one out and see if I can find out what went on with Vil Lapala's car there. Yeah, it's good eyes. I did not see that. Saw the things changing, but I just assumed it was because Milwaukee was coming into the pits. So it looks like he, made a big mistake into that last turn. Went in and got completely sideways, touched the grass going into it. That's what happened. It's very easy to do, just put the outside wheel on the grass under braking, and it completely sends the car sideways through the corner.
Yeah, I know the feeling of that myself. It's not the most comfortable feeling where you put your wheels on the grass. There's not really much you can do past that point other than just hold your breath and hope for the best, really. Apologies, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Van Starkenberg did the fastest lap the last time out. He did a 25.2, so he's going pretty quickly. But that was in comparison to Gosby's 25.271 as well. So you know these loads now pretty close. It seems like the Precision have the edge over the Twisters, but I can assure you that this will change. That the Twisters will then look faster. It's going to go a bit all over the place.
Yeah, and Milwaukee Cam is stuck in a ginormous battle here, and he almost hits Lowell. And there's all sorts of fighting going on. Lowell's car has Nick Rowland's name on the back of it. That doesn't help my change that's going on in those two teams. Sort it out, boys. Colle is going into the pits. So Lowell, you see how much more pace Milwaukee has to Lowell, and he almost runs into the back of him a few more times. Of course, Milwaukee on the fresh tyres now, and Lowell almost drives him into the wall. Interesting. Who moved over too quickly? Whether it was, I think Lowell made a little bit of a late call there to choose his one move.
So right, that was almost Michael Schumacher versus Rubens Barrichello-esque.
Yeah.
There, albeit I will argue Milwaukee wasn't really alongside, but I still think Lowell should have given that little bit more room. And do you remember what I said last lap, that the Twisters would start looking faster than the Precisions? Peter Burlak does do the fastest lap of the race of 1:25.1, so it is definitely not over yet between those two.
You're just trying to get some credit? I mean,
yeah.
I thought you was going to say you was wrong, but normally that's what happens with commentators. We're normally
we
wrong.
are usually quite wrong. It's always good.
The beauty of the job is nobody can argue with you because they know how to
look at Milwaukee. That was impressive. Jeez, he is brave. Very, very brave.
And that's on Mohammed Patel, not a guy that will move out of the way easily. Patel will always fight for it, but just has nothing to Milwaukee. He's come out of the pits clearly on a different strategy. Milwaukee's going to do about 1,000 more pit stops than everybody else this afternoon, so we'll see exactly where that'll come up. But the thing with Milwaukee is it's risky doing that strategy around a track like this because it's hard to pass, but he has not found it hard to pass.
Yeah, it's interesting how the strategy is going to work out for him, in the consideration that that would be the reason why you want to go for as little stops as possible as he moves on the inside of Diaz but doesn't quite get the move done. But yeah, you'd want to go for as low stops as possible in reality, because then you could do all these bumps into the back of Diaz that time and then moves up the inside. That was interesting. It's kind of like watching NASCAR there. But it's going to be interesting how the strategy plays out for him. I will assume that he'll be pitting quite a few times more. He has done the fast lap of the race though by a huge margin. Jeez, he did a 1:24.5, 6 tenths faster than Gosby and Burlak. So Milwaukee is on it at the moment, and if this strategy works out, if he can keep that pace differential between himself and Gosby, Berlak and Van Starkenberg, then he may not be out of this. I mean, he needs to make his tyres last just a little bit longer to make it worthwhile, but you know, this track is pretty high tyre degradation. There's a bit of there's some traction zones, some high-speed corners. It's quite a tough track on the tyres. It's quite a tough track on the drivers, to be perfectly honest. But it's going to be really interesting how Milwaukee sorts this one out, and if he can keep this current pace up there.
Agreed. I think right now you have to look at him popping himself somewhere into that huge gap that's opening up the size of Russia between the top 3 and 4th place. So you have to fancy Milwaukee. I mean, if you're going to guess at this point in the race where he's going to put himself in, you'd probably say in that gap. So he's going to probably have to do a little bit more to overtake these top 3 because they're so close. And look at how close Berlak is to Van Starkenberg. He was only 2/10 behind him going into this middle sector. Difficult to follow a car through this middle sector. You kind of get dazed and confused because there's only one line to take, and if he makes a mistake, then you make a mistake twice as bad. That's just the way it works. So it's always hard to do, but can he stay this close for a good move onto the start-finish straight on Van Starkenberg and split the 2 positions up?
Yeah, it is pretty difficult. I totally agree with what you just said. It's really quite difficult to stay behind a car because, you know, you're in the you've not got as much downforce, you've not got the downforce that you need. And you're focusing usually really, really hard on that car in front. You know, just how much closer am I this lap? Where can I make my moves? Where's he taking his line through this corner? And you do start making more mistakes. Berlak Bo is keeping his mind focused. He's done this enough times, and he's just going to wait patiently for that move on Van Starkenberg, just for it to open up, and then he'll go on the hunt of Gosby. Not sure if he currently has the pace, but he's closing up ever so slightly on Van Starkenberg every single lap.
Agreed, yes, and we have a big fight going on with Lowell up the inside of Diaz into turn 1. Bash through. Is he? No, Diaz has now pushed him back. And then we have Ollie Pacala. He's now on the outside getting caught in this battle. And Lowell again. Bash. Oh, end of the race. Diaz is out. Not sure what is going on there. It just looked to me like way too many contacts for the stewards to ignore that one. So we'll see exactly what happened, but it's unfortunately ended Diaz's race.
Yeah, it could be anything to do from lag or just overly aggressive driving, but something to be pointed out was that Milwaukee is lapping a second faster than the top guys at the moment. He is going at an incredible rate of knots. He's just coming up to the back of Oslakovic from what I can see, and I think I just saw Ville Lapala entering the pits. I did not. I apologise, it was just my bad timing.
Lapala has no front wing. He hit the wall for the second time. Lapala's made a mistake, and this race goes from bad to worse as Milwaukee's side by side with Oslakovic, and Lapala goes into the pit lane. Milwaukee's going to try and go around the outside, but he'll get a good run for turn 1, and Oslakovic, it'll have to be a miracle to hold this place on. I think it'd be a smart move to just let Milwaukee go at this point. He's clearly in the faster car, and Lapala has to get that front wing.
Yeah, he's just pretty much gone out of the way there, really. Is trying hard not to ruin each other's race. You know, you're on totally different strategies. There's no real point in fighting too hard and ruining what we could have as a potential battle for the lead. And
Berlak!
Yep, I was just about to point that out.
Apologies. I just saw Berlak. I thought he was going to go for a pass into that chicane. He pulled out and then he pulled back in.
Yeah, there is only there was less than a tenth at the sector 1, sector 2 split between the two of them. There's actually half a tenth. Gosby's gapping them just a little bit, and I have got it that Lapala has left. Lapala is not in the race anymore, so that's a bit unfortunate there for the front row starter.
Yeah, 2 races in a row that didn't quite go Villapala's way. He has the pace, just can't seem to quite get it together, but he's a good driver and he'll be back next round and we'll see what he can do there. It looks like Berlak has dropped off a little bit from Van Starkenberg through the end of the lap, so maybe Berlak is quicker through the middle part of the lap and the beginning, but there's not really many places to pass through there.
No, but it is actually interesting about Lapala because from the start of the season I actually thought he was going to be one of the title contenders, and I do believe he has the outright pace. We saw it actually in Australia that he's got it's really, really good pace, but his consistency, I mean, he spun about 2 or 3 times throughout that race. He really, really struggled, and I'm not really sure as to the specific reasons as to why, because he's got the car for it, but he just couldn't pull it together really, and it was just a really unfortunate thing, because he seriously could be moving his way up through this championship and taking wins, but it's just not really come together for him this season.
Yep, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just, you just can't quite put all the things together. You have all the intangibles, but you just cannot find the finished product right now. And once again, Burlak drops off a little bit from Van Starkenburg through that tough section, as we said, to follow through there. And you also find when you follow a driver for this long that you kinda, the places where you have advantages and you catch, you kinda automatically end up driving the same line the same way that they do, so you slow down.
Oh,
Burlak is into the pits.
Okay, so this is interesting. Is this going to start Van Starkenburg and Gosby pitting? We're going to be interesting to see where this is going to go now. As Burlak got a really early box there, so that's really good stuff. I remember the last time that Van Starkenburg and Gosby, well, it wasn't the last time that Van Starkenburg and Gosby were fighting for the lead. They've done it quite a few times this season, but it was in Bahrain. And Gosby came into the pits, and there was someone sitting in his box, and there just really wasn't anywhere for him to go, and he lost that race to Van Starkenburg. Hopefully, this kind of event doesn't happen again today. And just look at Burlak; he's got quite a lot of clean air, but he has his teammate behind him.
Edward Malocki already behind Burlak, and that's going to be interesting to see, because Burlak, of course, now on the fresh tyres. But obviously with the more fuel, so this will be interesting to see whether Malocki catches Burlak. But perfect really for Burlak coming out in the clean air, hit no traffic at all. As Gosby enters the final sector, we'll see whether he dances to pit road. I would think it will be Rob Van Starkenburg who comes in this lap round, and they'll maybe try and split them just to see, because otherwise if they leave Van Starkenburg out much longer, surely he's going to get jumped by the undercut from Burlak.
Yep, Gosby actually does pit. Gosby does pit. Usually in these kind of situations, it is the leading driver who has the opinion as to whether and when to pit or not. And so I don't think Van Starkenburg would really have had too much of a call in this matter. But I mean, I'm sure he would have known that prior to the race. But now Van Starkenburg has taken the lead. It'll be really interesting to see where Gosby's coming out. He's actually coming out to the pits now. Here comes Peter Burlak. There's going to be a gap between them, but look shorter. Look now. It is actually, that is a much shorter gap. But think about this. Okay, now Milwaukee started P16, and now he's not too far behind Burlak, who is not very far off of Gosby, who was just in the lead. So there really isn't very much between these guys now.
No, and my apologies, I believe these cars are full of fuel now. This year, did they change the regulation where you no refueling?
I believe there is no refueling.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting thing, considering that these guys are lapping very, very quickly at the moment. As Jaakko has said, the person who's doing the broadcast for you, so wonderful. The cameras. Van Starkenburg has possibly lost second place now, because he doesn't have the pace that the guys behind him do, and that's going to be pretty detrimental to his race. I'm going to assume he's going to pit immediately to make that. Yeah, he's low. Actually, yes, he is. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
He has to. Yeah. He had to come in last lap, but the problem was he couldn't, because, like you said, the rules are the rules, and Gosby had the first choice. But I'm pretty sure this one might not even be that close. He'll lose. Because Gosby's already across the line. This isn't even going to be close. Burlak is going to be easily ahead. And where is Van Starkenburg?
Milwaukee pits.
Milwaukee's in the pits. That's extremely
he's come
early.
out in front of Kazuti. There's been a little bit of contact between the two of them. That's not going to mean he's had a really great entrance into his box. But Milwaukee there pits again. We're just going to put him quite far down, hopefully not into too much traffic. Cyril Vermuller, though, he is actually in the lead for the race in GT Omega car, which is partnership between the Precision and the GT Omega car. So I'm sure if Gosby got close enough, the GT Omega would get out of the way.
I would think that would be a smart idea. But rules are rules, I guess. You got to pit Gosby first, but you guys just lost second place. I'm not saying I was right, but in that circumstance, it's difficult to say because I mean,
I
if
reckon
you would
Gosby would have lost the lead.
yeah,
No.
that's the problem,
Yeah.
right? Is that if they would have pitted Van Starkenburg first, Van Starkenburg might have not lost the place, but Gosby might have lost the lead, or they both might have lost it. So I think they pretty much decided to cut their losses with Van Starkenburg and just say that we were going to lose that place, because looking at the gap between them, Van Starkenburg just doesn't have the pace. And now look at Burlack, he's going to attack Martin Gosby. Does Burlack have the pace to take the lead of this race?
Well, it will be interesting to find out. I'll keep an eye on the sector times for you, because Burlack was actually 7 thousandths of a second up in sector 1, but then Gosby was about 2 tenths faster in sector 2, and I think that was Cyril Vermeulen who's actually pitted. Yes, he has indeed. And out of the 3 of those, the person with the fastest lap, actually that you can't really tell, because a couple of them pitted. Gosby actually took the fastest lap of the race. He did a 1:23.802. About a tenth and a half, about 1.8 tenths faster than Burlack. Apologies.
Yeah, and Verdmuller came into the pits, as you said, so he is now P4. That gap continues to open up between 3rd place and 4th place, so I think this is as good a time as ever. Had terrible luck at Nürburgring going through the standings, that's why I've delayed to this point to do it, but we'll go through the order. We are on lap 19 of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Martin Gosby, championship leader, is in 1st place. Peter Burlack, now for Twister, has split the 2 precision cars. Van Starkenburg is in 3rd place. Cyril Verdmuller is 4th. Zoltan Suti P5. Mohamed Patel P6. Ajibola Lawal P7. Oli Pakala P8. Dimitri de Matos is 9th. Masculi rounds out the top 10. Roland rolls his way back up to 11th after the half spin. Luka Ozlakovic is 12th. Edward Malorki is 13th. We're not quite sure where he is in respective to pit stops, because he's making a lot of stops today and passing everybody 8 times. Florian Cole is 14th. Antonio Collert 15th. And David Franco 16th. 17 Armando Mora. Danny Vandeny is the last runner in P18, as we have 2 DNFers of Villapala and Alex Diaz.
Yep, agreed. We've got an interesting running at the moment, and I think that was Picala who's actually just pitted. Misculi actually not too far behind in the pit lane. But the gap between Burlack and Gosby closing down. It's now 1.7 between the 2 of them, and it was 3 the last time I saw that. So that's closing just a little bit every single lap.
Yep, agree. And when Malorki Cam here, he's right behind Roland and Ozlakovic. And he's trying to get by Ozlakovic up the inside. Into turn 5, makes the pass. And then he comes up behind Roland. And he's already failed at 1 attempt to pass Roland and succeeded at the 2nd. So 50-50 right there. And we'll see whether he can get by. But again, that's the thing, is he's back to these guys. Back to passing these guys who he's already passed once before. I think he's going to be doing that a few times today.
I totally agree. These guys are all going to have their mirrors full of a very fast twister car for quite a lot of the afternoon, the evening. In fact, between the load of them, and it's just I'm really interested to see where Malorki's strategy is going to put him. He's going to have a run down the straight, I reckon, that should give him 8th place. But Nick Rowland is probably not going to give it away too easily. As you can see, he's going pretty defensive as they head down into T1. Malorki's going to pick the outside as they go down. He's going to brake really late, and he's passed Rowland. That was a really late break there from Malorki that's given him that position. So up in 7th place, really good stuff there from Malorki.
Yep, great pass, and I thought we were going to have a carbon copy of the thing that caused Roland to half spin. We're trying to pass around the outside. Roland is obviously a racer. He's never going to give you the inside. Never. So you're going to have to go on the outside. Malorki does a good job there, makes it happen. Patel pitted. That's the reason why these guys jumped up a spot. Was Mohamed Patel entered the pit lane. Laszlo looking up the inside of Roland through the chicane. I wouldn't advise that move just yet. So we'll go back and check 2.1, the gap to the leaders. And there's a good fight going on all around the field. But it looks like Malorki now has some clear air. So we'll see what times he can do. Expect some fastest laps to come up left, right and centre here, because he's got a good 7-second gap before he hits De Matos, who's having a good race. We haven't talked a lot about De Matos, but he's right in there.
Yep, agreed. He's having a good race at the moment, putting him up into 6th place. But it's just really interesting. Milwaukee, I think his strategy, I'm wondering if he's on the harder tires, the softer tires at the moment, and see where this strategy is going to take him. Obviously, we can't tell. But it's going to be an interesting, just to see where this is going to go from here.
Yep. And looks like there was some action going on between Cyril Verdmuller. Oslakovic is bumping. There's bumping going on all over the place, apparently. This is one of those tracks that you have to be careful because of that reason. The gap opens up as you brake. There is a small gap that opens up at the apex of these long turns. But then if you dive up the inside, you always understeer wide into the car beside you. So it's one of those false things. You see the gap and you're like, oh, go for it. And then you slide into the car beside you. And of course, you have to live with the damage as well as possibly the wrath of some incident reports after the end of the race. So Roland, again, a bit more bashed and bruised from Oslakovic. Still hasn't managed to get by, though, as they are now into 8th and 9th this battle. Roland keeps finding his way back into that top 10.
Yeah, and no one really likes being on the other end of those instant reports. To be on the side of where you know that you've made a mistake and you've been brought in and then talked to, and you can't really do very much past that point. And it's not a comfortable situation, and the way to get around this is to not make any incidents like that. Or if you're going to crash out, make sure that it's their fault. That's always a good one. But anyway, the gap to the top 4, it looks like Van Starkenberg is actually closing up ever so slightly. There's only 3.9 between him and the lead, so that's 2.8, 1.8 even between himself and Burlak. So he is closing up ever so slightly on Burlak, but it's only literally by a couple of tenths. So it'll be interesting to see where this turns out. Cyril Verdmuller, though, I'm impressed that he's keeping pace.
Yep, he's managing to keep pace, and like I said, he could be on for possibly a podium. You never quite know, with how things go. You might have retirements, and suddenly you're in a podium spot. So I think he is going to be racing Milwaukee. Oslakovic still can't get by Roland. Roland has avoided a couple times some late dives. Looking at any other action going on throughout the field. And further down the order, we haven't looked at a lot of action going on back there. So running 12th Masculi, he just pitted, so he just overtook Florian Collet, and he's going to try and move his way back up. And Ejibo Lawal is the next guy for him to overtake.
Yep, you're going to have all these little jewels just appearing as we just finished lap. I think it's lap 23 that we've just finished. But yeah, all of the little jewels are going to start appearing now as enough people have gapped each other. You've got Gosby running away with it just a little bit. He's not really gapping anyone at the moment. It's staying pretty consistent between the top 4. Verdmuller's not actually dropping back at all, really. He's on 11.2 between them still, and it's been like that for quite a while. Yeah. But I'm actually really impressed by Verdmuller, how much he's keeping with that. But then you've obviously got the Patel, Oslakovic, and Roland, because Patel's joining into the back of this now. And it's this is when all the little jewels. This is when things get really, really interesting. But I'm actually, whereabouts is Milwaukee? There is Milwaukee. See, I think he's on a longer stint at the moment because he's not really running away from anyone at the moment. He's not really running towards anyone at the moment. He's just got himself some clean air, and he's just balancing himself out in this to make these tyres last as long as he possibly can at the moment. And so, hopefully to get his strategies back on and actually secure him this 7th place, as opposed to moving up to 4th place and then dropping back.
Yeah, I agree. That might be a smart move to kind of cut your losses and accept 7th right now. There's still a long way to go in this race.
Oh, here goes Patel round T13. He's just going to get past Oslakovic, but he's going to be on the outside for the final corner. He's going to try and get a cut back down the straight. Yes, he is, but I don't think he's going to have it. We'll find out by the time they get to T1. He's in that slipstream. He's actually pulled outside by side. Oslakovic is not moving really across on him. Patel, if he brakes late enough, he should have this move all said and done, but he's taking a late dive down the inside. There's a little bit of contact between himself and Oslakovic, but he does have that 9th place. Oslakovic will be absolutely fuming in there now. He's going to be looking for a move, but it's just not going to come to him. Oslakovic relegated now into 10th place.
Nice pass from Patel, made the most of the Ostakovic not being able to get by Nick Rowland. Caught them up and passed up Ostakovic, and now he's going to have to give Patel a go at Rowland, and they're all going to have a go at Rowland. We're used to seeing this by now. Verdmuller, interesting you say about him, maybe, I'm not sure whether he just has the outright pace, maybe he's put the soft tyres on, and the others on the hards, I'm not sure, but you would just maybe think that he has the pace right now to keep with Rob van Starkenburg, who has not exactly fallen off Burlak. He lost about that time that he's behind Burlak in the pits, so he's not exactly falling away at a rate of knots, so we'll see whether Van Starkenburg can crawl himself back in. Of course, that's the fight for second place in the championship. Those guys are even on points, so that's one of the best fights to watch on the field.
Yeah, but it's indeed whoever outscores who in those positions at the moment will take that second place in the championship. If not, they won't score, and then it'll just be as it is, and they'll stay on the same points. Gosby, though, so it's the fastest lap of the race, 1:23.781, about half a second faster than Burlak. However, it was only 5 thousandths of a second faster than his teammate, so his teammate is on top form at the moment. If not, Burlak made a mistake. I did see Burlak going through T4. The car did not look that comfortable at the moment. I think he may be struggling for his tyres. So I think he may be looking to pit in at some point.
Interesting, yeah, we'll see. He doesn't take the pit road this time, but maybe run on board with Peter Burlak through these long sections and see, because Van Starkenburg is definitely closing now from behind, and maybe round 2 Van Starkenburg will pit a lap earlier than Burlak and get that place right back.
Yep, indeed. As you can see, Burlak, though, 3.1 between him and Gosby. There is something not going quite right with Burlak at the moment. He seems to be struggling. He was half a second down again on that lap. So I think he's really got to be looking to pit anytime soon.
Yep, agree. So things starting to kind of settle down. Interesting from the cameraman. Jaakko's said that there's interesting rule this weekend about cuts, and he means that you can't cut more than 8 times. 8 cuts and you get a 30-second penalty. And apparently Cyril Verdmuller is actually the guy who's kind of on the fence here. He has to be a little bit careful, so maybe that's explaining his pace. Maybe he's just taking a little bit too much of the cake, and that's giving him the time.
Yeah, well, to be fair, around this track there's quite a few corners that you can cut. Not really any that you should be, though, because they've all got curbs and they're all bloody nasty. So be very, very careful of these curves. But I'm interested to see why someone will be cutting corners. So I don't really think that there'd be that much speed advantage unless you really count the chicane, which I believe there's anti-cut there anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'd gain the most amount of time. I'm actually just going to check it out from someone who's just going on board through that section. Yeah, there's quite a bit of anti-cut there, and it's going to be not a lot of time gained. But nevertheless, if you gain an advantage to it, you should be penalised. And 8 times, seems like a fair amount. But you really shouldn't be cutting anyway. There's no real reason for it.
No, I mean, I think you'll spend more time trying to find time learning how to cut, then you might as well just work on the car setup. So yeah. I don't really think it's going to pay off too much. It's not exactly a little slip road like that Raikkonen takes at Brazil that you can, cut the circuit, anything like that. But hopefully not, because Verdmuller is having a good race. So hopefully maybe a little bit of leniency if he has been cutting. As I said, I haven't seen it from my personal eyes yet, but we'll keep an eye on that one. Suti is P5 for Crown 7 Netrex, and he's doing quite a good job, but not really racing anybody right now. He's kind of sat on his own little race in 5th. He is 6-7 seconds behind Verdmuller, and he's about 6 seconds ahead of Dematos, who Malorki is catching Dematos, but like you said, really not that quick.
Yeah, interesting fact though is that when you're driving off by yourself, Gosby does it a lot, but I'm sure he can keep himself amused whilst doing so. But some drivers who aren't really used to be driving off by themselves, when they've got this clean air like Suti, I mean, I'm sure he's used to having like his own gap wherever he is on the field. But sometimes you lose concentration because you've not got anyone there to keep your eyes open, to keep your mind aware. and you can end up really costing yourself some time because you're not particularly focusing. It could actually be anything from braking early or anything like that. So it's going to be a bit interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because there's a few times, especially certain drivers will look at lap time splits and delta splits more than others.
Oh, look at Patel, look at Patel. He's going around the outside 3T1, but Roland is like, no, back off. But he's going to have a look down the outside.
Roland slides.
Oh, it's going to be close going through
side by side.
It is close, but it does mean that Mohammed Patel does take that 8th place. Roland drops back another one. I'd say that he dropped that because of the mistake through T2. I don't think he would have lost that position otherwise, so a bit of a shame there for Nick Roland to have put himself down a position. Berlak, though, has life in the tyres yet. He's just done the fastest lap of the race of 1:23.680. So there is life in that car at the moment.
And there needs to be, because the gap is under a second between him and Van Starkenberg. So there needs to be life. He's woken up the car at the right time, and a big four-way slide, as we saw from Roland. That was almost dirt racing, and just overtake it. The problem is with that turn 2 is that he didn't want to go in too early on the brakes, because then we've seen guys go right around the outside.
Right, pits.
You kind of have to guess whether he's going to try and go around the outside or do the cutback. And as you say, Roland is into the pit lane, so the GT Omega Racing crew out and ready, and we'll see whether he will come out in clear air or whereabouts he'll come out. Gap to the leaders, we said 9/10 of a second between Berlak and Van Starkenberg, and the gap coming down between Edward Malocki and De Matos, it's down to 3.6 now, so that is going to be a pass sometime made by Malocki on De Matos.
Yep, I'm going to keep my eye on Berlak though, because I want to see if he's gapping Van Starkenberg. I mean, looking at the previous laps, Berlak was actually a 10th faster. Gosby though has actually done the fastest second sector of anybody so far throughout the race, so it'll be just going to look once the live timing has updated to see where Gosby's time puts his lap. I think it could be the fastest lap of the race, but there's only one way to find out, and it was the fastest lap of the race, 1:23.592. Quite a bit faster than Berlak, actually just 10th faster. Berlak though about a 10th and a half up on Van Starkenberg, so Gosby's back gapping Berlak, Berlak's gapping Van Starkenberg. It's all kind of just spreading out ever so slightly at the top there.
Yep, and another note to make, there's only been 2 non-finishers currently at the start of that race. That's pretty impressive, because this track, it is very easy to put it into the wall, because like you said, it's a very rhythm section, but through that very tight section there's only one line to take, and if you take one curb or just touch the grass, you can lose it, and the walls are right there on this track. There is not much runoff, so it's very good to only see 2 non-finishers currently, Vil Lapala and Alex Diaz. Diaz was caught up in the incident with Lawal, lost his wing, and Lapala, of course, lost his own front wing in a collision, as we just said. So the gap is opening up now between Berlak and Van Starkenberg to 1.3, so maybe you're right, Berlak might have this under control yet.
Or Van Starkenberg's having a couple of problems, we've been told. He double upshifts through sector 2, so he's probably having some problems with his gearbox. Got to keep an eye on that. There is 1.4 now between the pair, between Berlak and Van Starkenberg, so I think Van Starkenberg could be struggling now, and these problems can be persistent and last throughout the race, and it can cost you so much time. Gosby actually did the fastest lap of the race again, surprise surprise. Malocki though, the fastest first sector, so Malocki's putting in some good times at the moment, and I'm wondering, because I think he's in like the wrong group of people for him at the moment. We've already said this before, when you look at his pace in comparison to the rest of the people that he's around, he's got 3 places to make up, and then he's into that top 4, into that section of people that he should be battling with. And he did actually do the fastest lap of the race there, about half a tenth faster than Gosby, but unfortunately, if he wants to win this race, that's not enough. If he wants to get onto the podium, that's not enough either, but it's still some really impressive pace. I think Musculi and Lawal have actually pitted it as well.
Lawal is actually out of the race, But wow,
He is
watching
indeed.
the replay back, he came out with the last turn, got way too wide, and then just lost control on the straight and hit the pit straight wall. So that's kind of a weird one, but a pretty big accident for Lowell, and he is out of the race, which I'm sure will please Alex Diaz. Karma has been achieved there, but unfortunate for us because it's always nice to see Lowell drive around the circuit. So we have 3 DNFs now as he is out of the race, and the gap between Burlak and Van Starkenburg opens up a little bit more, and it looks like Van Starkenburg might be struggling just a bit. I haven't noticed any double shifts. At Monaco, actually, he hit the wall when he was leading the race with only a few laps to go. And he had to cool the engine down by completely short shifting and almost driving the whole track in 7th gear. So it was like he was going around the hairpin at Monaco, which is a first gear corner and unbelievably tight. He was going around that in 3rd gear, like just to try and save the engine. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe he just did that a couple times for cooling issues or what, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yep. So Milwaukee there does the fastest lap of the race, and he is catching the back of De Matos. Something that I've constantly noticed is another person who keeps popping in these fastest times, in these fastest couple of sectors. Never necessarily the fastest lap of the race, but he's in. Generally, it looks like he's in a league higher than the people that's around him, and that is Euros Musculi in 12th place. I think he has just pitted as well, but he's done the fastest 2nd and fastest 3rd sectors on his outlap. So he's got some pretty good pace, and Musculi though. I think he should be higher up than he is at the moment, but nevertheless, this is how the race pans out. And he's actually just got a Roland in front of him.
That's never a good place to be. Burlak is coming out of pit road. Burlak pitted, so Burlak did pit before Van Starkenburg had a chance to do any undercut. So that's interesting to see now what the gap will be between him and Gosby, because we saw the gap come down massively with the undercut the first time, but of course Gosby's pulled out a little bit more of a gap this time round. So we'll see whether Burlak can close that one up and see what Precision want to do. Will they bring in Gosby once again and respond to Burlak? What would you do in this situation? You've got to pick Gosby this lap, right?
Yeah, you got to pick Gosby. If not, he's going to lose so much time. You've got to pick Gosby. If Gosby doesn't pit this lap, then they are trying something wildly different to Twister. And we have seen Twister pull a bit of a wild strategy at the moment. That was with Milwaukee, but that's obviously considering the position that he was starting in. Is Gosby going to pit? Gosby does not pit.
Wow.
Is Van Starkenburg going to pit this time first? He is. No, he's not.
Wow.
So the Precision boys doing something totally different at the moment. They've got good gaps. Wow, I did not expect to see that when I looked at the board. Euros Musculi, the fastest lap of the race, a 1:22 flat.
Wow.
That is an incredible lap. Well, it's 1:22.1, but you got to give it to him. That is an incredible lap there. That was 2 and a bit seconds faster than Roland's last lap. This is the thing with Musculi. He's going extremely quickly. Obviously, he has just pitted, but there's something in that car at the moment.
I always used to get yelled at when I did that. You got to be careful when you're down the back of the field and you're posting those times. Team gets kind of mad because they're kind of like, "Why are you so far back?" If you're posting those times,
Indeed,
you should be further up the field. I used to get yelled at. So if you're gonna be slow, you're gonna be slow the whole time. You got to really stick with it and fake it. But interesting, they didn't pick Gosby. Maybe they feel like he had enough of a gap and they'll bring him in this time. But for me, all Gosby has to do is match what Burlak does. It looks like Gosby has the pace to beat Burlak, so he doesn't need to do anything special. Unless Burlak came in seemingly early, which didn't really seem to be the case. It was about right. So Gosby this time, yes, he does pit. Now hopefully they got it right and they managed to steal an extra lap on those tyres just to be safe. But I don't know, it's a risk sometimes not worth taking. So we'll see whether Martin Gosby can come out front.
Yep, it's going to be interesting between the two of these, between Burlak. Burlak is actually closing up to the back of Cyril Vermeulen, who's not pitting. And I think we've said this before, that one of the people on different strategy may play a part in this race as yet, and Cyril Vermeulen may be that important part. We saw it in Formula 1 with Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, where Lewis Hamilton was in this case the Martin Gosby leading. Burlak is the Vettel and Vermeulen is the button. You can have this effect that would cost Burlak the lead in this case if Burlak could actually even get into that position. But it's going to be interesting to see where this goes from now. And Burlak needs to get that move done.
Yeah.
Absolutely instantly. He needs to get it done by turn 1 of the next lap. That is the latest.
Yeah, he needed to have this move done 2 laps ago. In his strategy, he needs to be keeping with Gosby and what were we thinking, trying to doubt precision. They get it precisely right as always and pit bang on time. And of course, we don't know what we're talking about.
Van Starkenberg stays out, so Van Starkenberg is not pitting. I think Van Starkenberg is going for a bit of a different strategy at the moment. But I mean, I think they're trying to put Rob into that P2. So if they play it right, then they could use Cyril to help them out with that.
Cyril's the knight in this chess match that's going on
But
right now.
Burlak is having disagreements with that. That looked interesting. That's going to be looked into after the race, I think, because from my angle, it looked like he turned in a little bit to Cyril Vermeulen. Maybe he just lost the back going into the braking zone, which is not really that surprising, but nevertheless, Burlak is into that P3.
Clear fear of horses from Burlak as he hits Precision's knight going into turn 1, but I guess he gets the pass done when we said he needed to, but it wasn't probably by the book. And we'll see Van Starkenberg. Maybe they will try and get Van Starkenberg track position at some point and force Burlak to overtake Van Starkenberg, because I think they haven't really got a lot to lose with Van Starkenberg. He doesn't seem to have the pace to catch any of the front two, and he has a big gap behind him to Verdmuller and to the next guy, so he really doesn't have too much to play with.
Yes, he is actually going to pit this lap. So Van Starkenberg statistically he will be out behind Verdmuller. So
interesting.
Yeah,
he went about 4 laps longer though than, or 4 or 5 laps longer than Burlak. So maybe if he does that again, he can do 1 stop less. I don't know. Yes. I don't know whether that was enough.
Obviously, we're not the people behind the strategy, so it's kind of hard for us to judge. But that's a bit of an odd one. And you know what's going to happen now? Van Starkenberg is going to win, but you know this is the way it's going to work. But yeah, Verdmuller into the pits behind Van der Neet, who is actually a lap down. But if you look at it at the moment, Burlak is in a little uncomfortable precision sandwich once again.
Yep, he's trying to create more space between him and Van Starkenberg, but unfortunately the gap between him and Gosby keeps coming down, and I wouldn't be taking any more bets if I was the bookies on Gosby winning this race. He definitely looks the favourite right now, but you know, we've been wrong before, and we might be wrong again. We usually are. So right now, though, lap 38 of the Hungarian Grand Prix, Martin Gosby, the championship leader, leads the Formula SimRacing World Series event. Peter Burlak is in P2. Van Starkenberg is in P3. Cyril Verdmuller is 4th. 5th is Suti. 6th is De Matos. 7th is Malorki. He is right ahead of Patel in 8th. Oli Pakala 9th. Masculi flying out there. He's P10. Oslakovic, Roland, Kolarec, Kole, Mora, Franco, and Van der Neet is how the rest of the current runners line up.
Yep, interesting. I just was on board with Malorki as he was heading up into T4, and you had De Matos and Patel off of the track at that point, and we've been told there was a little bit of a clash between the two of them. And Patel didn't even fight Malorki for that position at all. He just kind of essentially got out of the way before the T6, T7 chicane. So interesting things from Patel there to just move out of the way of Malorki. I believe Oboto and Twister are sister teams, so maybe a little bit of work going on between them as there is between Precision and GT Amiga.
Possibly. It could not be all team orientated. It could just be Mohammed Patel deciding to not angry the rival team or the joint team. Sorry. And another thing to do, it's kind of like when you come up on a back marker too, when 2 back markers are fighting each other and the leader comes up. the first guy sometimes will just get out of the way immediately and hope that the leader has to overtake the second guy will be in a place where he can catch up and possibly do a pass. So Patel might be doing that too, and hoping that Milwaukee will slow Dematos down more than he slowed Patel down. But it looks like he's a little bit far back to play that game, so it could just be don't make the person who pays your paycheck angry.
Yep, indeed. We've passed the halfway point in this race, and Gosby is the current leader in front of Burlack and Van Starkenberg. We've said that quite a few times this race, but it is the truth. Gosby leads. We're just going to push him even further in that championship charge. Burlack, though, will move himself into second in the championship. Van Starkenberg will put himself third. And Milwaukee will keep fourth because there's such a massive gap to the cars behind. But you know, this is the thing, is that all of them, the top four in the championship, are all race winners. That's why they're there. And the most consistent out of that is the championship leader, who, to be fair, wasn't there last time out due to the complications with the World Championship podium and things like that. So I would have been interested to see where Gosby would have been had he gone to that race in Germany. And you know, unfortunately, for a spectator point of view, is it can make the championship quite boring when you have such a massive gap between P1 and P2 in the championship. And I think Gosby has the pace and the skill to create that kind of gap, which makes it a bit unfortunate for the viewers. I mean, we've seen this throughout many leagues. We've seen this throughout the World Championship with Huis quite a few times out over the past few years. However, this season's looking a bit more interesting, and I'm hoping the same goes for the World Series race. For the World Series over the course of the championship.
Yep, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that the championship standings the way they are now were pretty much equalised by the fact that Van Starkenberg didn't score last round, the round that Gosby missed.
Yeah.
Because of the disconnect. So if Van Starkenberg had have won that race, which he was commanding, that would be a 50-point plus the other way and would have made the championship more interesting. But from a fair's point of view, you have to say Gosby, I mean, that's the place that he deserves to be in right now, because he didn't score at Nürburgring and he also didn't score at Monaco because he was taken out at turn 1 at Monaco, that terrible turn 1 that there is on that track, so you can't really blame the driver too much there. So I think the championship, it might not be, you know, as fun as it can be, but I think it's deserving right now. Gosby is currently the championship leader, and he is the deserving championship leader. It's up to everybody else to see if they can catch him.
Yeah, I completely agree. The person who takes the lead of the championship almost 100% of the time completely deserves it. There's very few scenarios where that's not the case, and Gosby has proved himself that he can go into the World Championship and effectively win a race, because if you look at the World Championship race in GB, I mean, he was effectively leading it, albeit with Bonohuiz's disconnection throughout that race, but Gosby could theoretically have won that race. He was not too far behind Huis quite a lot of the time, and you know, he had that pace, which, you know, I think Gosby can go into the World Championship scenario and actually challenge for some wins, challenge for some podiums, do decently, whether that would be the actual championship in itself or not. But you know, I think there is a real gem in Gosby at the moment. But you know, that's just the case, is that we've got to look at it that way and see where Gosby goes from here. Is this World Series is his to take at the moment?
Yeah, and we saw that last year too with Jack Keithley. Pretty much the exact same thing, where he had this one under control and he wanted to go in the other races, and he was clearly showing he was fast enough to go into the World Championship. But you know, you have to finish the job. You have to finish the World Series Championship first, and then worry about it. I think Gosby is a no-brainer that he'll be in the World Championship next year, and then I think Peter Burlack, of course, has World Championship experience. The other guys then are Rob Van Starkenberg. You know, is that a guy, a name that you want to put into the World Championship? He's a little bit slower than Gosby, but not by much.
No, I think if you were to put anyone into that seat, you know, Van Starkenberg would be a real good person to put into that role, and someone who is proving it right now is Milwaukee, who is closing onto the back of Dematos. He's going to have a little look down at T1. I'm getting the feeling the spider senses are in fact tingling, and Milwaukee's a little bit too far back at the moment. Pacala, though, is on the back of Roland. Roland, we've seen him defend quite a bit throughout this race and defend extremely well. So 2 little fights here just to keep us on our toes throughout the rest of this race. I think Milwaukee's just a little bit too far into Mouse at the moment. We'll have a look at the end of the next lap. However, Pacala is going to have a little look down into T1 as he's going to get a really good drive out of the final corner, turn 14. Is he closing fast enough? I don't think he's going to be really late on the brakes. He's actually going side by side with Roland. Roland absolutely not giving anything there, so they're going to go side by side through turn 2. Pacala, Roland, turn 2. Oh, it's going to be close if he just... No, Roland has got that one all sorted. He's defended that quite a few times this race, not through T4. Come on, we can't be having this.
No!
Oh,
wow.
It just was not going to work. Apologies to Pacala, but that kind of move is not going to work. It looks like he stalled the car as well. So awful for Pacala.
End of the race on a turn 4 pass. He wasn't even alongside. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what he's planning on doing. I mean, it's great for commentary. It makes it very exciting when you do things like that. But risk versus reward there, I mean, it far outweighs the risk versus the reward, especially on a driver like Roland, who's we've seen, is pretty firm in the rules that he parks his car where he's allowed to and forces you to go around. So I'm not sure what was going to come from that. And unfortunately, Pacala is going to be out of the race because of that for Hacksball, and he was having a great drive. So unfortunate.
That was totally unfortunate. Milwaukee's going to have a little look through T4 as well, but there's no way that he's going to try and make that move. But Roland, he's a really talented driver, and we've seen him defend throughout this race. He's got real skill with it because he doesn't get flustered by it. He knows where he wants to put the car, and he knows the best place to put the car. And I think Pacala's going to learn from that. But it's really hard to make a move through T4 at the best of times. But when you're not alongside a driver such as Roland, Roland may not have even been expecting the move there because you just wouldn't really. So it's a mistake that unfortunately came to the end of the race for Pacala. But Roland's still going strong in 10th, and luckily I don't think it cost Roland very much, so that's good.
Yep, that car has seen worse days, I'm sure, and Roland. He kind of reminds me of what Lewis Hamilton used to be like defending. I mean, DRS and things like that, and KERS. This is all kind of ruined the proper defensive driving in Formula 1 now, because, I mean, even if the guy has DRS, it's not much. It doesn't matter where you go on the track, you're going to get overtaken. Lewis Hamilton always used to be so good at defending and just worrying about his car, his placement of his car. And it seems to me like that's the type of driver that Nick Rowland is, and he just needs to find that little bit more pace and get the Lewis Hamilton pace, and he'll be right there. And another driver that I think is very, very good at defending is Bono Ruiz, and we all know how successful he has been.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that if you have the pace to put it into P1 and then you can defend your way through the race and you can show a masterclass in defensive movements, then you're going to put yourself into a really good position. But you have to have the pace from the start. And someone who has got the pace once again is Uros Masculi. He's pitted again, but he's set the fastest second and the fastest third sectors again. I mean, Masculi, where is this pace come from with him? The first sector that he's just done, nothing too special, but if he can repeat the second sector and the third sector again, there's going to be the fastest lap once again. So, Masculi's got some really great pace around here. It's just a shame that he's out of position.
Yeah, he's lighting up the timesheets, like you say, like Christmas lights. Crazy from 11th place driver to be lighting up the timesheets like that. But I mean, you can't yell at him for going quickly. So it just puts Pescara in a little bit of a scratch in the head situation, maybe, of okay, how do we get? And Masculi's in the pits again. Didn't he just come out of the pits?
He did. Okay, so he must have had a problem. I do see a front wing there, I believe. So
I saw
interesting. Not quite sure why he's pitting. Drive-through penalty. He must have been speeding in the pit lane. That is such a shame because that's going to cost him quite severely.
That's why he did the fastest lap.
Yeah. Well, there's very few tracks where you can set the fast lap of the race whilst doing anything in the pit lane. One of those is Donington. Another one actually is Montreal, because if you can have a good exit to the pit lane and do a really nice fast first sector, then you can have the fast lap of the race that no one else can beat. That's always good fun. Thumbs up, there's some driver tips there from me.
See, you should just write a book.
Yeah,
Racing for Dummies, Lewis McGlade.
It's alright, I'll get on that. I'll publish it at one point.
At least I didn't say racing by dummies. So I was polite, you know, giving you some credit. But yeah, I'll co-sign on that book, no problem.
It's alright. I'll get on that, and then you'll all know how to drive. Preferably not like me, because I'm not particularly the fastest driver in the world. But it's always a bit of good fun. If you like some racing, you should always take part, because it's always good fun.
You should write it from a commentator's perspective too, which is throwing all the options out there and never actually making a conclusive decision. Because all we ever do is Gosby should do a 1-stop or a 2-stop, but 3-stop might work as well. Like, we kind of throw all the options out there, and that way we're always right.
Yeah, exactly. Like the winner of this race could be Gosby, Burlack, Van Starkenberg, or even Milwaukee, to be perfectly honest. But you have to wait and find out. This is what you do as a commentator. You make lots of suggestions, and one of them's probably right, and if none of them's right, well, sorry.
Yeah, if none of them's right, then you're out of a job. Because, I mean, you get pretty much, it's kind of like you get 8 cuts of the track rule, and then you get a 30-second penalty. We get 8 guesses of the winner of this race. and we're allowed to choose it within the last 3-4 laps to go. So, I like our chances, usually, but...
Yeah. It's always good fun being a commentator. Looking at it right now, Gosby though is on the bubble at the moment. Milwaukee has pitted once again from 7th place, and I think
2 more.
Yeah,
1 more?
probably 1 more, maybe stretching it, but I reckon he can get away with 1 more if he keeps these tyres in check. He comes out into 7th place. He actually hasn't lost a position. Patel's coming down the pit lane now, but Milwaukee not lost a position, not gained a position for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
but
that has to be 1 more stop. That has to be. I mean,
there's definitely
2023.
1 more stop. No way is he going to the end of the race on that. I find it quite unlikely, unless he's sorted out some insane tyre air issues at the moment. Just had a look over to the live timings. Van Starkenberg's at the fastest first sector of anybody at the moment, and the top 3 are all matching each other pretty much lap by lap. Actually quite insanely close, to be perfectly honest, between the load of them.
Milwaukee, just went straight through the chicane. Not sure what happened there. Have to be careful he doesn't post any
cold tyres.
faster outlaps. Yeah, possibly cold tyres. Ollie Pakala is out of the race he's just left the room. We saw from his incident, maybe he was looking over that one for a good 10-15 minutes and wondering how that collision ended up. I think it was pretty straightforward from our point of view, but we're glad to see people racing their hearts out, and we'll see Ollie Pakala next time round. Milwaukee, it looks like he's stayed on the track the rest of this outlap, so that's good to see. Gap between the front 5.1. Gosby has it under control. Van Starkenberg 7.9 behind Gosby, so it's not a huge difference, but I mean, you have to look at that gap between the 2 precision drivers. It seems to be a little higher here than we've seen at some other places.
Yeah, Van Starkenberg though does look like he's catching on Burlack. He set some pretty good laps so far, and in fact his last lap was about 0.2 faster than Burlack, so Van Starkenberg is trying to latch himself onto the rear wing of the twister car in front. But Burlack, I don't think Burlack's got the pace to even close down to Gosby at present, so it'll be interesting to see where the strategy will play into this. Milwaukee's at the fastest first sector, 27.929, which is a pretty good first sector, to be perfectly honest. When you're looking at it, it's about a 10th faster than what I've seen over there, so really, really good first sector from Milwaukee, and to see if he can carry that on through the lap instead of a really good one.
Yep, I'm going to kind of start looking at pit stops. So DeMatos hasn't stopped in a long time. So you have to say that DeMatos and Milwaukee, the gap between those two is the respected gap, because DeMatos is surely going to have to stop again. So I'd say that gap between them, 12 seconds, is the gap that Milwaukee has to catch up on DeMatos in order to overtake that position on the circuit. Looking at Suti, who's in 5th place, Suti is also not stopped. He stopped lap 38, so he's going to have to come in again, you would think. So, yeah, it looks like now, finally, this might be kind of where Milwaukee is right now on the circuit, is P7. Yeah,
well, good news for him is he has just set the fast lap of the race, a 1:21.758. So good stuff from him at the moment. He's got about 12 seconds to the car in front. He's just done about 1.4 seconds faster on that lap in comparison to Matos. And if he times this right, then Matos may pit whilst he's catching up, and that can really play into the favour of Milwaukee. Looking at that pace though, Milwaukee is going to be probably on the softer tyres, and he is going to be pitting again. Or going by the commentator trick, he could be on the hard tyres.
He's going to be on either one of the two. You getting it, I tell you. Lewis McGlade, he's nailing it. He's going to be right every single time if he keeps making these sort of predictions. You know, it takes a brave man to say he's maybe on the softs or the hards.
Yeah, well, that's why you sometimes see it at the beginning of like a GP2 race, when it's kind of like, well, any one of the 26 drivers on the grid can win the race. And it's like, well, wonderful, thanks for the information.
And sometimes if a race happens like Indianapolis that one year where the race got stopped,
just six people.
Nobody won. Basically, I turned it off. So I turned it off. If I turn my TV off, then the race stops. Nobody won.
Well, it's alright, we're not DTM where someone gets disqualified at the end of the race. And then, fun fact, there was not a winner to that race. Hopefully this won't happen here. Nobody's pouring water into anyone else's pockets. And Gosby should hopefully keep it.
We hope. Or maybe not.
Anyway, the gap to P1, P2 is 5.3 at the moment. But actually did just close that down in the final sector by about 0.3. So it's interesting to see whether that Twister car is fastest in that third sector. Gap between here, Berlak and Van Starkenberg is about 2 seconds, so there's not really too much change in between the two of those. Van Starkenberg a little bit faster on a lap by lap basis, but we'll see if that plays in later on in the race. Their compatriot at GT Omega, that's Precision's compatriot at GT Omega, Cyril Verbmuller sits in 4th place. Still quite an impressive drive there to put it into 4th place, so really good stuff there from Cyril Verbmuller.
The Matos is in the pits, so here we go. He's going to have to go 18 on those tyres. That's
doable.
Ooh,
if he puts it on the hards, that's doable. Milwaukee
but that
then
means he's going to be on the hards, and Milwaukee's going to be on the softs, so
could be on the softs.
Could be, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, Milwaukee though, he has impressed me throughout this race. You know, the way that he just took a deep breath at the beginning. You know, I'm starting from I was just 60th, actually 18th. I apologise if I've got that wrong. I can actually just check. Hang on. But you know, he started from low down on the grid, and by the end of the first lap, he was 11th anyway. It's been a really impressive drive there from Milwaukee to have put himself up even into P6 and to even be able to challenge for a couple of positions, maybe up if he can get it right. Looking at the gap between himself and Suti, I think P6 is as high as he can go. But actually, Van Starkenberg has passed Berlak. Berlak has been into the pits. Has been into the pits for the final time, and it's back to a precision 1-2. So let's see how that'll play out.
Yeah, I don't think the idea that we were talking about with Van Starkenberg, he's going to have less. I mean, if he can go longer on these tyres, he's going to have a lot less to go on the final set of tyres. So
unless he goes really deep, you know, to maybe about lap 60 and then puts on the softs and then absolutely rinses it out for the last few laps. But it's going to be a bit tough for Van Starkenberg to get himself into second position.
If he can do that, he might have a chance. Though.
Yeah, if he can do that,
It's a big if.
If he can do that and Gosby pits now, let's have a look and see if Gosby's actually pitting. Gosby does not pit, but if Van Starkenberg can do that and actually puts on the softs, if Gosby is on the hards and Van Starkenberg's on the softs, then Van Starkenberg may actually even have a chance to catch up to Gosby. So you know, there's life in this race yet. So we'll just have to see how this all unfolds. As is the way with FSR, you know, with any sim racing really, you don't know what really is going to happen until that final checker flag is waved here in Hungary.
Yep, it'd be interesting to see, because Van Starkenberg, he realistically, like you said, he has to go to about lap 60 to stand a chance.
Yeah.
That's going to be a long way, but he did manage to go 5 laps longer than Burlack the first time round. So if he managed to go another 2 laps onto that, it could be doable. Burlack right now, all we know is he needs to be pushing. Now is the time where he needs to get that gap to Van Starkenburg just in case. That is the problem. And then, like you said, we'll worry about Gosby once he gets past Burlack, but if he can clear Burlack quickly enough, if he can do that strategy, I mean, he might be running on rocks right now and could be coming into the pits for all we know this lap. So we'll keep an eye on it. But if you're a Rob Van Starkenburg fan and you do not see your guy coming to the pits on these next 6-7 laps, all is well in the world.
Gosby
might
pits.
have a shot.
Gosby is in the pit. Gosby is in the pits. Freaked out a bit there 'cause I thought I said it wrong. But no, Burlack's on the fastest first, fastest second sector, so I think that's why Gosby's reacting at the moment. Van Starkenburg, I think, is going to stay out. Yes, he is indeed. Van Starkenburg then takes the lead, and Burlack is rounding the final corner as Gosby's just about to exit the pit lane. So Gosby is going to keep that second place from Burlack, as we did suspect. And Burlack just crosses the line, and let's have a look at what that lap was. 21.3, so that was a fast lap of the race by quite some way. Damn, that was quick.
Burlack did what he needed to do. We said he had to go. Now was the time, and he delivered, no doubt about that. And that's what you have to do if you're doing the undercut. He shouldn't have too many worries about going the distance on these tyres. And whereas the other hand, Van Starkenburg is probably all looking at tyres right now and seeing whether he can go a little bit longer. But I don't know. It's going to be a stretch for RVS to see if he can do it, and if he has managed to save these tyres a lot more than Twister has. And it's interesting that Gosby came out behind Nick Rowland, and I think he's going to be the only person ever to have lived to get an easy pass on Nick Rowland, because I think he'll move clearly out of the way here, as Nick Rowland has tyres with precision.
Well, it's also a lapped car, I believe.
Yeah.
But Burlack, they're faster in the second sector by 0.006 of a second over Gosby. So Burlack putting in some decent times at the moment, but not really gapping much between them. Van Starkenburg has stayed out as we thought. There's 15 laps to go here, and things are about to start getting a bit heated. There's 4.5 between Burlack and Gosby, from what I can currently see, and Burlack actually did the fastest lap of the race once again, 1:21.2. Obviously Gosby's time's not really representative because he came out of the pits on that same lap, but I think Gosby's got the pace just to gradually gap, but there's only one way to find out, and that's just to patiently wait and see how this unfolds.
And one interesting thing here, Dimitri de Matos is catching Edward Malorki. De Matos has come out of the pits and he's done a 21.8, a 21.8. That lap was a 22.4, of course. You know, the one time I start talking about he's catching, he goes slower. But he did two 21.8s, and Malorki was in the 22.1s and 0s. So interesting to see that gap. We predict Malorki has to come in one more time. Be interesting to see, because Malorki can't slow down and save those tyres if he has De Matos pushing in from behind, so he's going to have to pit, and he'll have to catch a lot of time up. He needs to have pulled out more of a gap.
Gosby must have made a mistake through the second sector. He was 5 seconds down on Burlack. But actually, sorry, I've just totally read that wrong. Gosby is now behind
He's
Burlack.
in the pits! Gosby's in the pits! Again! Unbelievable, what happened there? How did that even happen? He spun it into the wall on the final corner.
No, that's Rob nearly did that. Gosby, though, I have no idea what happened to Gosby. I just sort of saw the sector times. I think Gosby must have been pushing too hard, because he was fastest in the first sector by 0.2 over Burlack, but then he's just made the mistake, and that's played right into the favour of Burlack, because if Burlack is going to keep this strategy going, then he'll be in front of Van Starkenburg. But if Van Starkenburg plays his strategy right, then Van Starkenburg is in the perfect position to take Burlack. This is really heated up for the last few laps of the race. It's amazing.
Wow, what just happened? We just lost complete control of this race. We had it and we lost it, and I'm looking at the replay on Gosby and I can't see anything. There's a lot of lag on the replay, so really difficult to say whether he hit the wall, when he hit the wall, what exactly happened. But Gosby's going to have to push like mad to try and catch up the leader's race, and he can't. I don't even think he can put the softs on. I mean, that's that's going to be stretching the life of the softs, surely. So surely he's going to have to go hards.
Yeah, I will probably be pushing it just a little bit too hard, but he lost his front wing in Sector 2 somewhere, not really sure where, but I would assume the corner that he's actually coming up to, probably could have run wide there, but not really too sure.
Wow.
But yeah, he lost his front wing, had to pit, and that has cost him the lead of the race, not the lead of the championship, I don't think. I think he'll still hold that, although it will be debatably close. I will actually just pull up the championships for you and have a little look.
Peter Burlak leads the Hungarian Grand Prix. Well, Wout van Starkenburg leads currently the Hungarian Grand Prix, but we think he's going to have to pit, but he's trying to go longer on the tyres. This is harder to explain than I thought. Well, Wout van Starkenburg's trying to get the lead of this Grand Prix by going on the soft tyres in the final stint. Burlak has the lead, technically, of the Grand Prix, we think, as he has stayed out for Twister, and a mistake, uncharacteristic mistake from Martin Gosby, has moved him down to 5th place and put Cyril Verdmuller on the podium.
Okay, right, championship update. If Gosby puts himself to P3, Burlak wins the race, then the gap between Gosby and Burlak in the championship will be 5 points. However, if Gosby cannot get onto that podium and Burlak still wins, then there'll be a joint lead for the championship. So this is where things get interesting. If he stays P5 though, if Gosby stays P5 and Burlak does win the race, then Burlak has to lose the championship. Things are really heating up in the championship at the moment thanks to that mistake for Gosby. And the worst thing is that Gosby completely knows it. And when you're in a championship which could come down to the wire with only a couple of points between the top load, you know, those points could be detrimental to his championship, and I think he's fully aware of that.
What was the word you used earlier? We're hoping for a juicy race. We have a juicy one to finish this one off. Van Starkenburg still going out on those tyres. He probably will try and go on the softs at the end. The gap is only 6.6. He's going to have to catch up a long way on Burlak in the remaining 10 laps to go. Gosby is pushing. You can see the frustration. He's gone wide a couple times, touched the grass a few times, and it's so hard to concentrate back and say, okay, I'm in 5th place, I need to catch up and try and get 4th, when you've been leading for this long and you've made a mistake like that. And it is easy to do on this circuit, there's no doubt about that. When you're leading out front, you get into a rhythm, and all of a sudden, like I said, you put a wheel on the grass, boom, into the wall. So Rob van Starkenburg still out there, says that the lap times are currently enough, if the tyres last, to hold on to the gap.
But Van Starkenburg's pit. Van Starkenburg has pitted. So Burlak taken the lead. Burlak now leads this race, and indeed at present he leads the championship. So this is very, very important now. Gosby must catch suit. He's actually in the pit, so is Verdmuller. So Gosby is actually up into that podium position. There's now 5 points in the championship, and Van Starkenburg is a little bit too far ahead. He's sent him.
Gosby all over the place coming out of turn 1. I just looked on board, and that car, like, I don't know if it's frustration or something's bent, I'm assuming, on that car from the collision, because it has not been tracking straight since that crash. And Gosby's going to be lucky to keep this one on the road.
I'm sure Gosby's experienced enough. He'll get it through onto the podium. It was just a bit of a scary moment there for him. I think there's too much of a gap, as I said, between himself and Van Starkenburg. But Van Starkenburg has got to be pushing now. When you think of it, Burlak must be on the harder tyres that have gone on for a bit of a while now. These tyres have been on for a good few laps now. Van Starkenburg is on fresh, what we would assume is softs at this point. So, you know,
here we go. That's all we can say, really. We wait to see what happens. Backmarker gets out the way, and Rob van Starkenburg is trying to chase down Peter Burlak, who has the lead of this race. Gosby, take the third and run right now, is what he would love to do, is to take this third and just start fresh after that mistake. See whether he has problems out of turn 1 again. car got sideways last time, and again it kind of kicks a little bit, but he'll manage it. And
Gap's dropping half a second, a sector between Van Starkenberg and Burlack, and something that I will point out to you guys at home is that whoever wins this race between Van Starkenberg or Burlack, they will have the second place in the championship and the 5-point gap to Gosby, provided Gosby stays in the position that he currently is.
This could be the championship decider. This could definitely pay.
This could be. If it comes down to the wire and you've only got a few points in it, this could be the point that Gosby or whoever will look back on and go, that is where I lost it. That is where I lost the time between them. It's another half second that has gone down between Van Starkenberg and Burlack. Van Starkenberg is absolutely pushing. He's going to be rinsing these tyres though. If he can keep this up until the end of the race, he has got this absolutely sorted. But it's going to be an absolute push to have this until the end of the race.
What a lap from Van Starkenberg, and 19.6 on the board right there. Pushing when he can see it, the gap is coming down. This is going to be great to see. We're going to have a fight for the lead on the track if these tyres can last between Van Starkenberg and Peter Burlack. And if they take each other out, Martin Gosby could still yet win this race. He's sat in third place, and he is being caught by Cyril Verdmuller because Verdmuller is on the fresh tyres. So Verdmuller does a 19.7, almost matches Van Starkenberg's lap, so Gosby might not get third yet.
Oh, I think there's going to be some tactics brought into this because, you know, I mean, obviously some people don't really like the idea of team orders, but in the real world, they may happen. I personally don't think there are teams that really do it too much in FSR, but they may happen. There's usually it's just a gentleman's agreement between some drivers to be like, yeah, you know, I'm in this position. Would you mind? It's kind of one of those situations, really. And
there has to be right now. You
exactly.
can't let Verdmuller beat Gosby. I mean, Suti's too far behind, but look at the gap between the lead. 3.2 seconds in the gap between the leaders here at Nürburgring. I'm a race behind. Hungary. I'm so excited I can't even speak the words. 19.657, 19.653 from Van Starkenberg. Insane consistency. Lap 63 of the race, and the gap is coming down quickly between Twisters Peter Burlack and Precision Motorsports Rob Van Starkenberg. Let's see what it is at the end of the sector. 2.9. Surely Burlack's going to have nothing for him.
Yeah, but you've got to think of it this way. If Van Starkenberg is absolutely shredding these tyres, he's got to get that move done as soon as he's on the back. He can actually see Burlack now only one corner ahead of him as they head into this twisty, turny section where I think Van Starkenberg is going to have the most advantage. There is not much between them now as they're coming through the Sector 2/Sector 3 split. As they round that corner, here it comes. 2.353 between the two of them. It's going to drop probably another half second in this sector right now. So things are shaping up absolutely brilliantly for Precision, and Burlack is going to be sitting in that car absolutely sweating out. Burlack's going to be pushing as much as he can, but there is just nothing that he can do.
Oh boy, we have a good one. 1.999.
Wow.
Beats the 2 seconds, and he could be onto him almost by the end of this lap, and we see a lock-up from Burlack. He is pushing. You have to give it everything you've got at this point if you're Peter Burlack, but we could see Rob Van Starkenberg well within a second by the end of this lap. The real question is then, can he get by, and will these tyres hold on to the end?
It's going to be interesting. It's dropped another 2.5 tenths throughout the first sector, which is the one where he's been dropping between about 3 tenths, 2 tenths in that sector anyway. This is where he's going to build up about half a second. We're going to keep on board with him until this sector ends. Just look at how much is between himself and Burlack. There is absolutely nothing between them now. This gap is just falling so quickly. Here we go through the 1.2. Wow, it's basically 1.3 seconds, but there is just not much. He's going to be in that slipstream coming down the pit straight. There is going to be absolutely nothing between this and a few laps time.
Next lap, he's going to be close enough to start looking at a move. Oh my word, what an end to the race we're going to have here at Hungary for the World Series. We thought it was going to be all sealed, signed, sealed, delivered. Shows what we know. A slight mistake from Gosby. Burlak has the lead. 1 second now, the gap between Van Starkenburg. Burlak's last laps. Burlak is trying to respond the best he can. His last lap was his personal best lap of the race at 21.0. But he's on the hard tyres. He found 3/10 Burlak on that last lap. So you have to say he's doing everything he can. Van Starkenburg comes across the first sector split. Another 2/10. 8/10 of a second. Rob Van Starkenburg for Precision Motorsports closes in on the twister car of Burlak.
Yep, this move is going to happen any time now. I think it's actually going to happen before the end of this lap is when Van Starkenburg is going to have a little look. He's going to be in the dirty air coming through the sector now, so he's going to drop maybe a tenth, but those tyres are absolutely working for Van Starkenburg. They're about to cross the sector 2, sector 3 split, and it's half a second now. It's half a second between Van Starkenburg and Burlak. He is going to it's going to be Van Starkenburg's going to be right on the back for the first corner of the next lap. This is going to be seriously close, ladies and gentlemen.
And we got some back markers here just to add to the flavour. This is going to be interesting how they get out the way. Sometimes it actually hurts the second place guy more than the first place guy with the back markers. Burlak's car clearly struggling to get off corners. I saw him light the wheels up off turn 12. And here we go into turn 1. He's within a car length.
There was no gain between Burlak and Van Starkenburg. Van Starkenburg didn't gain on Burlak at all through that third sector. However, you can see how visually he is closing through this first sector of this brand new lap. There is not long left to go. 5 laps left of the race. Burlak pulls over. Burlak is fully aware of how close Van Starkenburg is. There's now 3/10 between them. And when is Van Starkenburg going to make that move? And will Burlak be able to even do anything to defend from it?
And Van der Neat and Oslakovic are not fighting each other. Van der Neat is a lap behind Oslakovic, so Van der Neat needs to get out of the way. So it's not going to be too much. I thought those two were fighting. I was like, oh no, that would have been disastrous. But they'll get out the way if they catch up. And here comes Van Starkenburg. Can he get close enough for a slipstream pass down this straight? It has to be way you do it. And look at this side-by-side Van der Neat and Oslakovic. What is going on there? Van der Neat isn't racing Oslakovic. He's now unlapped himself. And Burlak is catching up right there. You boys better see them. Here they come. Onto the start-finish straight. Van Starkenburg. Oslakovic gets out of the way. Will he get a slipstream on Peter Burlak for the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix into turn 1? Burlak goes defensive, and here we go. Van Starkenburg around the outside. Can he hold it all the way around? Burlak pushes him wide, and Van Starkenburg still holds on. He's going to have the inside for turn 2. Burlak's going to have to pull something off. He tries to squeeze him over, and he forces Van Starkenburg a little deep. Still side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel contact. Burlak holds on. Wow.
Oh, but look out into turn 4. Is this seriously going to happen? No, Van Starkenburg is completely wise to not making a move through there. He's got another few laps to make this move stick, but these soft tyres will not have very long on their lives left, and Van Starkenburg is going to be fully aware of that. Burlak is going to be fully aware of that. Great defensive stuff from Burlak, and good attacking stuff from Van Starkenburg. That was a real masterclass to show the rookies. This is how it's done. This is how you should all be driving. With this side-by-side action, this is what it should be like.
I think that's just round 1. I get a feeling that we're gonna have a multi-round fight. Van Starkenburg a little twitch. Have those soft tyres gone? Is he gonna have lost his advantage on those soft tyres?
I think there's not going to be much between them as Van Starkenburg winds himself up for a second attempt. He's going to be in that slipstream, but look at Burlak. He's actually gotten away a little bit. Van Starkenburg's going to start closing up now. You can see it visually, but he's not going to be close enough into T1. Will we actually have a little look down into turn 2? I think Van Starkenburg has lost his advantage. When you look at how much these two are closing up on each other now, when you look at Van Starkenburg closing up on Burlak, it's not as insane as what we just saw. But Burlak has done exactly what he needed to do as a defensive driver, and has put the car in exactly the right position. And it may have just given him the breathing space to keep P1 now.
Wow, if that's the case, what a defensive drive from Burlak. Van Starkenburg, he's this close. He's sideways out of the chicane. Surely those tyres have gone. They've reached the end of the grip level, and Burlak, that will be a lovely sight for him to see Van Starkenburg sideways, and the gap is opening up. And surely Burlak, is going to hold on unless Van Starkenburg can really get close enough. I think both of these guys haven't got a lot of tyres left, but those hards seem to be hanging on a little bit better than the soft tyres from Van Starkenburg, because he can't even close in. He's falling back slightly.
Yeah, and I believe it's 2 laps to go. Am I correct? It is 2 laps to go indeed. 2 laps more than Berlak has to defend from Van Starkenburg. Van Starkenburg is just too far behind. I think these soft tyres have gone. This was something that we said when we predicted that Van Starkenburg had gone onto the soft tyres, that when he was setting these lap times, he's going to be shredding those tyres, and he needed to make that move done and dusted the second he was onto the rear wing of Berlak. He couldn't make that move stick, and it is costing him now. Van Starkenburg sits in 2nd place, and Berlak is going to close that championship lead down to just 5 points between Berlak and Gosby. So the championship is absolutely all to play for, and this is a complete turning point in the championship. Berlak actually on the last lap set his fastest lap with a 1:20.9, which is a pretty good lap. It's only 1/10 faster than Van Starkenburg though, and I think Van Starkenburg is just dropping off of Berlak now like a stone.
I think he's thrown in the towel. Van Starkenburg, I think he's thrown the white flag, because he cannot close in on Berlak, and I saw just a change through that chicane. He made a slight mistake, and I think he gave it everything he had, and then thought, okay, I'm not gonna catch him now, because Berlak is gonna start the last lap of the Hungarian Grand Prix. And it's interesting, Verdmoller is right behind Gosby, but we don't expect any change in that position, as because of the team orders, or whether it's driver orders, but we don't expect Gosby to lose that podium position. We'll keep an eye on it, because it looks like Peter Berlak is going to have enough to hold on for this win.
Yeah, obviously he wouldn't have got that win had Gosby not had his mistake, lost the front wing even, and then had to pit for repairs. But Berlak, my word, could you argue a better driver? Berlak has absolutely deserved the win today. Provided he makes it through this 2nd and 3rd sector. It's been absolutely excellent stuff from Berlak. Van Starkenburg though, that closing speed. He's only got a few more corners to go. Van der Niet is currently off the track, getting completely out of the way of Berlak and Van Starkenburg. And Berlak is just about to head into the final sector of the Hungarian GP.
Peter Berlak enters the final sector. He has held off the threat from Van Starkenburg at massive force from Precision Motorsport. He's held off both drivers. He's beat both drivers, and this race is going to be 100% Peter Berlak. He wins the Hungarian Grand Prix for the Formula SimRacing World Series. Van Starkenburg comes through to finish in 2nd place. Martin Gosby is coming through the final 2 turns, and he will take 3rd and run to the next race, because he had the lead of this race and in control, but Martin Gosby will hold on and steal 3rd place after making a mistake. And I don't think that was swerves of joy, more swerves of despair, as Verdmoller comes through in 4th. Zoltan Suti, a guy we have not talked a lot about, he has raced on his own all day long, and he's going to come through in 5th.
Yeah, it was a great drive there from Suti. Dimitri Dematos is going to come home in P6. So great stuff from him. Malorki from pretty much the back of the grid with some excellent overtaking. Put himself into P7. Thought he may have been higher, but he's tried making that strategy work as possible, and it's still some decent points. Mohamed Patawi's had some interesting overtaking opportunities throughout the race. Puts himself into P8, Luka Oslakovic in P9, Euros Musculi in 10, Nick Rowland 11, Kolarek in 12th, Kole in 13th, 14th is Mora, 15th Van der Niet, and then 16th was Franco, and that is your finishers for the Hungarian GP. And not too long left in the championship, and we have got absolutely everything to play for. You could not have a better turning point in the championship, and that mistake from Gosby has put him in shouting distance of the 2 very, very fast men behind him. And moving into Valencia, in what's it's only a couple of weeks' time until Valencia. We're going to have quite the interesting fight between the four of them.
Pretty
being
much.
Burlack, Van Starkenburg, Gosby, and Malorky. So it's going to get really, really interesting, and we should have a heated championship.
Sorry, pretty much winner takes all at Valencia for the top three, because they're all so close. Yeah, so the winner grabs it unless Malorky grabs it, in which case second place grabs the lead at the championship. And you always want to be in the lead of the championship. You never want to go into the last round needing help. You always want it in your own hands. And I can't believe it, how this race has just turned on its head. We thought it was all over, and far from that. One of the best finishes of the year. We had a race for the finish with 3 laps to go, side-by-side action, great side-by-side action, we should say, between those two drivers. Absolutely perfect. They were aggressive, pushing each other, but completely fair, and both knowing that there's championships on the line. They can't afford to not finish. And Peter Burlack is going to win this race. Driver of the day for you, Lewis?
Burlack, he's just put it in the right place at the right time. I would argue Malorky from the back of the grid with those amazing overtaking opportunities, but, with the fast Van Starkenburg behind, that was immense defending from Burlack. That you wouldn't have won that race without those kind of defenders. It's the second race of the year, and second win of the year even. In the World Series, and that was absolutely excellent. You could not have a more perfect drive from Burlack.
I'm going to go Burlack every day of the week. What a drive. We completely agree. We agree. Unbelievable.
Indeed.
Never agree with commentators. What's going on? But we both agree Burlack deserves it, and Burlack takes the full points at Hungary. So we move on to Valencia for the World Series, as Lewis said. But for now, we look towards the World Championship race, which will come to you live tomorrow. I will be broadcasting it myself with Nick Rowland, and I look forward to seeing it there, and hopefully they'll have just as exciting race as we just had here today. So that's all from us right now. I've been Matt Hartley, alongside me Lewis McGlade. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time for the Formula Sim Racing World Series. Good night.